Galactic Council, PANICS, as humans refuse all diplomacy. Aliens of every shape, size, and color crowded the chamber, their eyes fixed on him. Some had multiple arms, some floated without legs, and some were covered in scales. The hum of alien voices filled the air, blending into a strange music that made his heart beat faster. Despite the awe he felt, Alex did not show fear. He was here for one reason, to speak for humanity. He had trained for this moment for years. He had studied countless alien languages, customs, and etiquette. Yet, no matter how much he had prepared, he knew there was no way to predict exactly how this council would react. Humans were different from every other species they had met in the galaxy. Humans did not bow easily. Humans did not accept authority without question. And humans, above all, valued freedom. As he approached the central platform, the council chair, a tall creature with 4 eyes and a long, thin neck leaned forward. The chair's voice was loud and commanding, echoing through the chamber. "Human envoy Alex Carter," it said, "welcome. You stand before the leaders of the Great Council, representing your species. Today, we offer guidance, protection, and friendship. All we ask is your obedience to the accords that have kept peace across the stars." Alex paused for a moment. He looked at the chair, then around the hall. Every alien seemed to expect him to kneel, to show respect, to accept their rules without question. But he could not do that. Humans had survived thousands of years of war, famine, and oppression on their own terms. He would not let that spirit be broken now. "I thank you for the welcome," Alex said. His voice was calm but firm. "I speak for humanity. We have heard of your council and your accords. We understand your history and your rules, but we cannot accept your terms as they stand. Humans will not sign agreements that limit our freedom or place us beneath any other species. We will not bow to authority that we do not choose to follow." A wave of murmurs passed through the chamber. Alien eyes widened, some faces contorted in shock, and some arms waved in disbelief. The council chair leaned back, almost offended. "You dare to refuse the accords?" it asked. "Do you not understand the consequences? These treaties have kept peace for centuries. Without them, chaos will reign. Your species could be isolated, sanctioned, or even attacked." Alex did not flinch. He had expected these threats. He had read reports of species who had tried to force humans into submission, only to fail. "We understand the risks," he said. "We do not fear consequences. Humanity chooses its own path. We will work with others only as equals, and only when it benefits both sides. We will not allow control by those who claim to know what is best for us." Some aliens gasped, while others laughed. One floating creature with translucent skin, revealing glowing organs inside, tilted its head. "Surely you are bluffing," it said. "No species has ever dared to refuse the council in this way. Humans, you will regret this." Alex shook his head slightly. "We do not bluff. We make our decisions carefully after thought and experience. Humanity is not here to play games. We are here to survive, to grow, and to meet other species as partners, not subjects." The council chamber grew tense. Discussions erupted among the alien delegates, voices overlapping in dozens of languages. Alex could not understand most of the words, but he felt the meaning: panic. They were not used to a species that simply refused. The chair tried to regain control. "Human envoy," it said, voice louder now, "we offer friendship. We offer technology, guidance, and protection. Refuse, and you risk isolation. You risk your worlds being attacked or sanctioned. Why do you not see the wisdom in our ways?" Alex took a deep breath. He knew that some council members expected him to beg or argue in anger. They believed intimidation and authority would bend humans, but humans were different. They had learned to survive by thinking, not by fear. "We do see your wisdom," he said. "We respect your achievements, but humans have our own wisdom. We do not accept domination as guidance. If you wish to work with us, you must meet us as equals. Anything less will not work." The chair's eyes narrowed. 4 sharp gazes pinned him in place. "Do you think you can stand against the will of the council?" it asked. "We control trade, communication, exploration. We control alliances. You are one species among millions. Alone, you are weak." Alex looked around the hall at all the creatures who believed they were stronger. "Strength is not only in numbers or fleets," he said. "Strength is in determination, in courage, in the will to defend your freedom. Humans have survived where others have failed because we refuse to give up control of our destiny. That is our strength." For a moment, there was silence. The council murmurs faded. Then the chair spoke, voice trembling slightly. This is unprecedented. No species has ever spoken with such defiance. You are reckless, human. Alex smiled faintly. Perhaps, or perhaps we are simply honest. We do not bow out of fear. We do not pretend to agree when we do not. That is our nature. At that moment, a younger alien delegate, a small creature with wings and bright eyes, spoke up. But Envoy, surely you see the logic. The Council protects the weak, maintains order. If humans refuse, you place yourselves in danger. Alex turned to face the delegate. We are not weak. We choose to face danger with our own strength, not through dependence on others. Humans will not be subjects. We will be partners if you respect us. If not, we will continue on our own. A murmur of disbelief swept across the chamber. Even some council members who had stayed quiet were now whispering, their faces pale. The chair slammed its 4 hands onto the platform. This is madness. No species has ever dared refuse the council. Do you understand the chaos you bring? Alex remained calm. We understand perfectly. We are prepared to face any challenge, but we will not compromise our freedom. Humans are not slaves to tradition nor to fear. We stand on our own terms, and that is how we will survive and thrive. For a long moment, the council sat in stunned silence. Then the chair finally spoke, voice low and tense. You will leave the chamber now. Alex bowed slightly, not in submission but in respect, and turned to walk away. He knew his mission here was not to argue endlessly, but to make one thing clear: humanity would not be controlled. As he walked, he could feel dozens of alien eyes following him, some in anger, some in confusion, and some in fear. Humans had never been predictable, and now the galaxy would see it for itself. Outside the chamber, human security officers were waiting. Alex nodded to them, then stepped onto the observation deck overlooking the council city. He watched the alien ships hovering far below, a sparkling river of lights and motion. For centuries, these species had ruled through hierarchy, intimidation, and tradition. Now one small species, small in numbers but strong in will, had said number back in the council chamber. Whispers grew louder. Analysts, diplomats, and leaders debated in panic. What do they mean by no? One alien asked. How can a species survive without agreeing? Another replied. They must be bluffing. No species dares refuse. It is not possible. But as the hours passed, more reports arrived from council scouts. Humans were not bluffing. They continued their daily lives, they continued trade and travel, and they were quietly building defenses, but they were not asking for help, nor making demands. Humanity's refusal was absolute. Alex returned to his quarters, tired but satisfied. He knew the council would not forget today. Some species might even plan retaliation. But humans had sent a message: we are not your subjects, we are not your slaves, we will work with others only as equals. That night, as Alex looked out at the stars from his ship, he thought of human history. So many times, humans had faced impossible odds and survived. So many times, they had been underestimated. And yet, here they were, standing firm in the face of the entire Galactic Council. He knew the next days would bring challenges, arguments, and perhaps attempts to intimidate humanity. But he also knew this: humans had courage, discipline, and the willingness to fight for freedom. No council, no fleet, no alien could take that away. And somewhere deep in his mind, Alex smiled. The galaxy had been warned. Humans would not be controlled. The story of today would spread far beyond the council chambers. Other species would whisper of it, debate it, and perhaps even fear it. But humans would continue on their path, steady and unshakable. The stars outside his window twinkled quietly, as if acknowledging the beginning of a new era. Humanity had spoken. Humanity had refused. And the galaxy, for the first time in history, was unsure how to respond. The Galactic Council was in chaos. After the human envoy Alex Carter refused to sign the accords, panic spread through the chambers like wildfire. Creatures of all shapes argued loudly, their voices overlapping, making it almost impossible to understand a single word. Some floated in anger, some stomped with frustration, and others simply stared in disbelief. No one could believe a species had dared to say no. Council leader Taran, a tall creature with glimmering blue skin and 4 arms, tried to calm the chamber. We cannot ignore this, Taran said, his voice trembling slightly. Humans have refused our laws. They do not follow tradition, they do not fear us, and they will not negotiate. We must act, or the balance of the galaxy is in danger. Others shook their heads. We cannot attack them immediately. said a soft-spoken alien named Selka. Her body shimmered like liquid silver. They are unpredictable. They may be small in number, but they are not weak. Our scouts report rapid improvements in their defenses. If we move too quickly, we risk disaster. Panic and uncertainty spread as more reports came in. Scout ships sent to human territories reported nothing aggressive. Human cities thrived. Their fleets moved calmly and efficiently. Their scientists continued research. Humans traded with some neighboring species, but never under the Council's rules. Every action was measured, careful, and deliberate. The Council could not understand this behavior. Humans were supposed to react with fear or submit, but they did not. Taran slammed his hands on the Council podium. We cannot leave them alone. We must enforce the accords. We must show them the consequences of defiance. Another council member, a floating entity with many eyes called Veen, shook its translucent form. We do not know the consequences. They do not follow our logic. They do not fear. They are different. Attacking them may provoke them, and we do not understand how far they can go. The room fell silent for a moment, as if everyone felt the weight of Veen's words. The council had ruled for centuries, believing that hierarchy and intimidation worked everywhere. Now, for the first time, someone or something challenged that belief. Far away on Earth, humans were unaware of the council's panic. People went about their daily lives. Factories worked, schools taught, and families spent evenings together. Alex Carter returned to Human Command and briefed his leaders. They are panicking, he said. The Council cannot understand why we refuse. They thought we would bow. They thought we would negotiate under pressure. They are wrong. Humans will continue our path as we always have. Human Admiral Ryan Cole nodded. Good, let them panic. We do not need to fight them yet. Our strength lies in restraint and planning. We will continue to prepare quietly while they make mistakes. On Council worlds, fear grew. Some species began to argue openly about sending fleets to force humans into compliance. Others suggested sanctions and trade blocks. Still others whispered of war. But every plan carried uncertainty. Humans did not act like any species the Council had met. They did not react to threats. They did not beg for peace. They simply lived and grew stronger. Analyst Laura Benson studied human behavior from the Council's data streams. She had been assigned to observe humans closely, trying to understand why they refused diplomacy. She watched human cities, fleets, and communication networks. The more she learned, the more she worried. Humans did not act recklessly. They were disciplined, focused, and clever. Their defense systems were advanced but not aggressive. Their fleets moved like shadows, efficient and precise. She realized that the humans' refusal was not defiance without thought. It was strategy. It was patience. They are not isolationists, Laura said to a group of council officials. They are selective. They will cooperate, but only on their own terms, and they have the skill and discipline to survive without the council. If we try to force them, we risk catastrophe. The council could not believe her. Centuries of experience told them that no species could survive without following the council. Yet humans ignored the rules, and they still thrived. Reports from the frontiers continued to arrive. Human outposts expanded quietly, monitoring council movements, but never initiating conflict. They traded with minor species who respected their terms. Council fleets observed, expecting fear or submission, but found none. Humans acted as if the council did not exist. Fear turned to frustration. Council member Bral, a large armored creature, banged his fists together. We must teach them a lesson. They will not respect us otherwise. Our fleets are powerful. We can crush them quickly. Do you understand what we are facing? Another alien replied, a long-necked scholar named Minnell. We do not know the limits of their technology, their strategy, or their discipline. Humans are unlike any species we have encountered. Rushing to attack may destroy us instead of them. Arguments went on for hours, and the council could not reach a conclusion. The human refusal had broken centuries of tradition and left the galaxy in uncertainty. Every species realized something uncomfortable. Humans did not fear them. Humans were not predictable. Humans could not be controlled. Alex Carter observed the council's confusion through communication feeds. He spoke to his colleagues quietly. This is exactly what we expected. They cannot understand humans. They never have. We will continue to stand firm. Our path is clear. The council will have to learn to respect us, or we will survive without them. Human philosopher Ethan Ross explained the strategy to other humans. We are not rejecting the galaxy out of ignorance. We are choosing how we engage with it. Humans have always survived by thinking, planning, and acting independently. Now, the Council sees what it means to meet humans as equals. We will continue our work quietly, strengthening our defenses, growing our knowledge, and maintaining our independence. Patience is our greatest weapon. Meanwhile, alien scouts continued to monitor human territories. They reported new space stations, more advanced fleet formations, and the development of unknown technologies. Every report increased Council fear. Humans were not advancing recklessly. They were careful, precise, and efficient. They were preparing, quietly and deliberately, while the Council argued among themselves. On one Council world, a young alien diplomat named Kira tried to explain the humans to her superiors. "They do not react like other species," she said. "They are calm when threatened, patient when provoked, and disciplined when challenged. Their refusal is not defiance for pride. It is choice. They do not give up freedom for any reason. They are dangerous in ways we cannot measure." Older Council members shook their heads. "No species has ever dared this before," they said. "They must be bluffing, they must submit eventually." But the reports continued. Human cities expanded, fleets maneuvered strategically, research stations developed new technology. Human scientists worked day and night, never wasting resources. The Council realized that humans were not bluffing. They were quiet, careful, and strong. Inside Human Command, Alex Carter and Admiral Ryan Cole discussed the Council's reaction. "They are panicking," Ryan said. "They have no idea how to handle humans. They will make mistakes if they act too quickly. We need to remain calm and ready," Alex nodded. "Exactly. Humans survive because we do not rush. We do not react out of fear. We prepare, we plan, and we act only when necessary." The Council does not understand patience. That is why they panic. As weeks passed, the Council's fear grew. Trade negotiations broke down. Diplomatic meetings failed. Some species even withdrew from Council business, unsure how to handle humans. The galaxy was unsettled. Humans were not hostile, but they were not obedient either. The Council had no experience with a species that refused to participate in the system entirely. In human space, life continued normally. Families celebrated birthdays, workers returned from factories, and scientists shared their discoveries. Humans were ready if the Council tried anything, but they had no desire to provoke conflict. Their power lay in their independence, discipline, and ability to endure. Alex watched the stars from his ship one night. He thought about the Council's panic, the arguments, and the confusion. Humanity had done nothing aggressive, yet the Council feared them. Humans had survived countless wars on Earth, and now they faced a galaxy that wanted to control them. He knew the next steps would test human patience and strength, but he also knew they were ready. "Let them panic," he said quietly to himself. "We do not need to fight. We do not need to argue. We will stand firm, and the galaxy will learn that humans are not easily controlled." And far away on Council worlds, aliens continued to debate, argue, and plan. They sent fleets to observe, they sent envoys to probe, they whispered of sanctions and possible war. But every action showed them one uncomfortable truth. Humans were not afraid, humans were not predictable, and humans were not weak. The story of the human refusal spread quietly among the stars. Whispers of this independent species reached the furthest planets. Some laughed at the human courage, others feared it. And some, rare few, began to wonder, could humans be the future of the galaxy not as subjects but as equals? Alex Carter and the human leaders continued their work. They built, they planned, and they watched. They knew the Council's panic would lead to mistakes. They knew patience was their greatest weapon. Humans did not need to act aggressively. Humans only needed to survive, remain independent, and stand firm. The galaxy had been shaken, and no one knew what would happen next. The humans had refused diplomacy, and the Council had no answer. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humans were different, humans were strong, and the Council could no longer assume control. For the first time in the history of the galaxy, one species had stood against the Council without fear. And that species was humanity. The Council could no longer ignore humanity. The refusal of Alex Carter and the humans had created chaos across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the Council felt uncertainty. Fleets had been sent to observe, diplomats had tried to negotiate, and analysts had studied humans for weeks. Yet every report told the same story: humans acted differently. They did not respond to threats with fear. They did not bow to authority. They did not beg for peace. They simply acted with calm and purpose. Analyst Laura Benson sat in a quiet room on the Council's observation world, studying data streams from human planets. She had been assigned to understand why humans refused diplomacy, and the more she learned, the more she worried. Humans were not reckless or aggressive, but they were disciplined, clever, and patient. Every move was calculated, every action measured. Humans were preparing quietly for the future, while the Council panicked without even trying to understand them. She called a meeting with other Council members to share her findings. "You must understand," she said, her voice steady. "Humans are not like any species we have met. They do not react out of fear or pride. They act based on reason, planning, and principles. They are not isolationists. They do not reject us out of anger or ignorance. They simply choose how and when to engage." Some of the older Council members shook their heads. "We cannot rely on theory," said Bral, a large armored alien. "We need to enforce our rules. They must submit. If they refuse, it will bring chaos." Laura shook her head. "They will not submit because they value freedom. That is their strength. And that is why your threats will fail. Humans survive not because of fleets or weapons alone, but because of their will to stand firm. They act with thought, not fear. We cannot intimidate them. We cannot force them. We can only try to understand, and even then, success is uncertain." The Council murmured uneasily. They had never faced a species that refused control so openly and effectively. For centuries, power had been enough. Fleets, treaties, threats, these tools had worked everywhere. Yet humans ignored all of them. The Council could not predict what humans would do next. Far across the galaxy, humans continued their daily lives. Professor Ethan Ross lectured students on one of Earth's many space campuses. "Humans survive because we understand ourselves," he said. "We know our strengths, our weaknesses, and our limits. We act with reason and courage. We do not bow to threats because threats do not define us. We choose our path and we follow it with discipline." Alex Carter watched the humans closely. He knew the Council was watching too, trying to understand human behavior. "They will never predict us fully," he said to Admiral Ryan Cole. "Humans are patient, clever, and resilient. We do not act without thought, but when we do act, it is precise and effective. The Council fears what it cannot control, and we will not give them that control." Council leaders debated what to do next. Some argued for more observation, while others insisted on showing force. Fleets were sent near human trade routes, their presence meant to intimidate. Yet human commanders did not react with aggression. They simply monitored, escorted the Council ships, and continued their missions calmly. It was a subtle message, one the Council could barely interpret. Humans could fight, but they chose not to provoke. This restraint unsettled the Council even more. Species used to power and fear did not understand why humans would allow a fleet to approach without attacking. Laura Benson tried to explain. "Humans do not need to fight to be strong. Their discipline, strategy, and patience are weapons of their own. They will defend themselves if necessary, but they do not provoke without reason. You cannot control them with fear because fear does not guide them." Some Council members began to panic further. Fleets prepared for potential conflict, while diplomats tried again to open communication channels. But humans answered only in measured ways, sometimes with silence, sometimes with careful explanations. The Council realized that no amount of pressure could force humans to act against their principles. Inside human space, Alex and Ryan discussed their long-term strategy. "They will continue to send envoys and fleets," Ryan said. "They may try to trick us, divide us, or pressure us, but we remain firm. Our goal is independence and equality. We will not be intimidated, and we will not negotiate under force." Alex nodded. "Humans survive because we are consistent. We do not panic. We do not beg. We act with thought and courage. The Council is learning that our refusal is not weakness, but strength. Patience is our ally, and preparation is our weapon." Professor Ross continued to explain human philosophy. "Humans act out of principle. Freedom is not given, it is earned. Cooperation must be chosen, not forced. Humans will work with others, but only as equals. That is why we refuse the Council's accords. Not out of defiance, but because we choose our path, and we are ready to defend it." As weeks passed, the Council continued to struggle. Discussions became more heated. Fleets prepared for potential aggression, while diplomats grew desperate to find ways to influence humans. Yet every attempt failed. Humans did not act irrationally. Humans did not react with fear or anger. Humans acted deliberately and with focus. Laura Benson observed from her monitoring station. "The Council does not understand humans," she said quietly to herself. "They do not see our discipline, our patience, our courage. Humans are not reckless or foolish. We act from principle, and that is why we survive. The Council is afraid because they cannot control us, and control is all they have ever known." Reports continued to arrive from Council scouts. Human fleets moved in perfect formations, their bases expanded efficiently, and human scientists developed new technologies quietly. Humans did not seek conflict, yet their readiness was undeniable. The Council realized that if they tried to force humans, they might provoke a disaster. Humans were not predictable, and the Council could not calculate the outcome. Alex and Ryan spoke about the Council's reaction. "They are learning slowly," Alex said. "But they will continue to make mistakes. Humans survive because we are patient, clever, and disciplined. They cannot push us and they cannot predict us. That is why we stand firm." In council chambers, older species debated quietly. "Perhaps we cannot control them," one said. "Perhaps we need to understand their thinking," Laura nodded. "Exactly. Humans must be understood, not forced. If you try to intimidate them, you may fail. If you try to pressure them, you may provoke resistance. Humans choose how and when to engage. That is their strength. You cannot take it away." The council slowly began to shift its approach. Instead of trying to force humans, they sent scholars and analysts to observe. Fleets were recalled slightly, and envoys tried to understand human behavior. Humans responded calmly, explaining their principles, their philosophy, and their strategies. They did not seek war, but they did not compromise their freedom. Alex Carter observed the council's reactions carefully. "They are beginning to understand slowly," he said to Ryan. "But full understanding is impossible. Humans are not like any species they have met. We are patient, strategic, and disciplined. That is why our refusal works and why we can survive without them." Professor Ross continued his lectures. "Humans survive because we know ourselves. We understand our history, our challenges, and our principles. We act with courage, but we do not act recklessly. We do not need to provoke or threaten. Our strength lies in our patience, discipline, and clarity of purpose. The Council fears us because they cannot control us, and control is all they have ever known." The Council's fear slowly turned into respect. Not admiration, but cautious acknowledgement that humans were different, strong, and independent. Fleets still moved carefully near human space, and envoys still watched, but the panic had begun to shift into a quiet understanding. Humans were not reckless, humans were not weak, and humans were not to be underestimated. In Human Command, Alex reflected on the Council's change. "They will continue to test us," he said, "but we will remain firm. Humans do not need to fight to survive. Our strength is in our discipline, our patience, and our courage. That is why we refuse diplomacy on their terms and why we will endure." Professor Ross concluded, "Humans choose their path. We do not follow blindly. We do not fear the unknown. We act with purpose, and that is why we survive. The Council may not understand us yet, but eventually, all species will learn that humans are not to be controlled." And so, the galaxy continued to watch humanity. The Council had learned a difficult lesson. A species that acts with principle, patience, and courage cannot be controlled. Humans refused the Accords not out of defiance, but because they were strong enough to stand on their own. They did not fear, they did not panic, and they did not act recklessly. They acted as humans always had, with clarity, determination, and an unwavering will. The Council may never fully understand humanity, but one truth was clear. Humans were different, humans were strong, and humans were prepared for whatever the galaxy might bring next. The Council's frustration grew. After weeks of observing humanity, they had realized something alarming. Humans did not respond to threats as other species did. Fleets sent near human trade routes or space stations were met with calm monitoring, not aggression. Envoys delivered warnings, but humans answered politely, never compromising their independence. The Council had expected fear, panic, or negotiation. Instead, they found silence, discipline, and careful planning. Council leader Taran pounded his podium in anger. "We cannot allow this," he shouted. "They do not fear us, they do not submit. Our fleets cannot intimidate them. Our envoys cannot sway them. If we do nothing, other species will see humans as a threat and chaos will follow." Other council members agreed. Brow, the armored veteran, growled, "Then we must act. We must demonstrate our power. They will not understand otherwise." Analyst Laura Benson shook her head. "They will not respond to intimidation. Humans are different. They are patient, disciplined, and strategic. If you attack or threaten, you may provoke a response you cannot control. Humans defend themselves efficiently, but they do not seek war." Despite her warning, the Council authorized a limited show of force. A fleet of warships moved into human space, positioning near key trade routes. Their weapons glinted under distant suns, and their captains prepared for engagement. They expected fear, resistance, or submission. They were wrong. Human Commander Ryan Cole received the report calmly. He gathered his officers in the bridge of their flagship. "They are coming," he said. "Their fleet is near our trade route. They expect us to react. Remember our orders. We monitor, we escort, we protect, but we do not provoke. If they fire first, we respond with precision. If not, we continue our mission." The fleet moved steadily, shadowing the Council ships. Human scouts reported every move, noting formations, rotations, and communication signals. Humans did not panic. They did not display aggression. They acted as if the Council fleet was a minor inconvenience, a distraction from their work. Council captains were puzzled. Their weapons were ready, their ranks disciplined, yet the humans did not act with fear. The Council envoys attempted communication. "Human fleet," one broadcast said, "you are trespassing in Council-monitored space. Leave immediately or face consequences." Commander Cole responded politely yet firmly. "We are conducting standard trade, escort, and patrol. We mean no harm. We continue our mission. You may observe, but we will not alter our course unless required to defend ourselves." The Council fleet faltered. Their threat had no effect. Humans did not yield. Humans did not panic. They maintained their positions, calm and precise, protecting trade ships and cargo. Their discipline was extraordinary. Every maneuver was executed perfectly, every fleet rotation calculated. Back in Council chambers, panic spread. "How can they be so calm?" asked one alien delegate, wings trembling. "We expected fear, negotiation, or submission. They do none of these. Their discipline, it is unnerving." Analyst Laura Benson spoke again. "Humans do not need to show aggression to be strong. Their restraint is a weapon. They will defend themselves if necessary, but they will not provoke. That is why your show of force fails. They are not unpredictable because they act recklessly. They are unpredictable because they act deliberately, with intelligence and patience." The Council realized for the first time that humans were dangerous in a way they could not measure. Other species relied on fear and submission to control conflict. Humans relied on principle, strategy, and discipline. A fleet could be powerful, but it could not intimidate a species that did not respond to threats. Weeks passed. Council ships remained near human trade routes, but nothing happened. Humans continued their missions, escorting trade ships, monitoring fleet movements, and maintaining their schedules. Council captains became frustrated. They could not provoke a reaction. They could not predict the humans' next move. Alex Carter observed the events from his command station. He spoke to Admiral Cole quietly. "They are learning the hard way," he said. "Humans do not panic. Humans do not fear. They do not react to intimidation. The Council will see that our strength is not in numbers or weapons alone, but in our discipline and principle." Commander Cole nodded. "We act with precision, not aggression. They cannot force us to act outside our principles. That is why we survive." Professor Ethan Ross lectured to human leaders about the Council's behavior. "The Council expects fear or compromise. Humans do neither. They will test us because they cannot understand our philosophy. Our strength lies in patience, discipline, and courage. The Council may not fully grasp it yet, but they will learn. Humans will always choose our path." As time passed, Council analysts reported the humans' restraint. "They never provoke, yet they never submit," Laura Benson said. "Their strength lies in their calm, their discipline, and their courage. They do not fear. They do not panic. That is why your fleets cannot intimidate them." Council leader Taran sighed. He realized that every action taken against humans failed. Fleets, threats, and warnings had no effect. Humans were not reckless. Humans were not weak. Humans were not afraid. The Council had no experience dealing with a species that acted entirely on principle, with intelligence and discipline, yet refused to submit to any authority. On human planets, life continued normally. Trade ships moved, research stations expanded, families lived their lives. Humans prepared for the future quietly, while the Council fleet hovered like a shadow, expecting fear or defiance that never came. Human leaders knew the Council would continue to test them. They knew fleets and envoys might escalate. But humans had no desire to provoke conflict. Their power lay in their calm, their planning, and their discipline. Alex Carter watched the stars one night from his observation platform. He thought about the Council's behavior, the fleets, and the panic. They expect fear, submission, or compromise, he said quietly. But humans act on principle, patience, and discipline. That is why we succeed. That is why we endure. They may have fleets, but we have strategy, preparation, and will. We do not act recklessly. We do not panic, and that is our greatest strength. Professor Ross continued to explain human philosophy. Humans survive because we know ourselves. We understand our history, our challenges, and our strengths. We act with courage, but we do not act recklessly. Our discipline is our weapon. Our patience is our shield. The Council fears us because they cannot control us, and control is all they have ever known. Council analysts reported back, acknowledging a new truth. Humans cannot be intimidated, Laura Benson said. They will not submit, they will not panic, they will not act without reason. They are patient, disciplined, and strong. If we attack or threaten, we risk a disaster we cannot predict. Humans are different. Humans are dangerous in a way we cannot measure. The Council slowly began to realize that intimidation would not work. Fleets returned slightly, and envoys approached with caution. Instead of trying to force humans, they tried to understand them. Humans responded calmly, explaining their philosophy and principles. They did not seek war, they did not bow, they did not panic. Alex Carter reflected on the Council's shift. They are learning, he said to Commander Cole. But full understanding is impossible. Humans are patient, disciplined, and courageous. That is why our refusal works and why we can endure without their approval. Patience is our ally, preparation is our weapon, and principle is our strength. Weeks later, Council fleets began to withdraw further. Envoys still watched, but they no longer expected immediate compliance. Humans continued to expand trade, research, and fleets quietly. The Council realized that they could not force humans into submission. They could only try to understand them, and even then, success was uncertain. And in human space, Alex Carter and human leaders prepared for the future. They strengthened defenses, improved technology, and continued their work with patience and discipline. The Council might test them again, but humans would respond carefully, never recklessly, and always according to principle. Humans had shown restraint, calm, and intelligence in the face of intimidation. Fleets and threats had no effect. The Council slowly learned that humans were different, strong, and disciplined. They did not fear. They did not panic. They did not submit. The galaxy had witnessed a new kind of strength, one that did not rely on force or fear, but on patience, preparation, and principle. For the first time, a species had stood firm against the Council without anger, panic, or compromise. And that species was humanity. The Council may never fully understand humans, but one truth was clear. Humans were strong, humans were disciplined, and humans were prepared for whatever the galaxy might bring next. The Galactic Council had learned an important lesson. After weeks of observing humans, sending fleets, and trying to intimidate them, the Council realized that humans could not be controlled by fear, threats, or pressure. Every attempt had failed. Fleets hovering near human trade routes met calm escorts. Envoys delivering warnings were met with reasoned replies. Humans acted with discipline, patience, and principle. The Council's panic slowly turned into cautious respect. Council leader Taran called a meeting of all major members. "We cannot continue this way," he said. "Our fleets and threats have failed. Humans do not respond to intimidation. They will not negotiate under force. We must recognize them as equals. Any other approach risks disaster." Other Council members nodded slowly. Brow, the armored veteran, grumbled, "I did not expect this. I thought humans would panic or compromise. Instead, they acted with calm, discipline, and intelligence. We underestimated them." Analyst Laura Benson spoke, voice steady. "Humans survive because they act on principle, not fear. They are patient, strategic, and courageous. They will work with others only as equals. If we wish to engage them, we must approach carefully without hidden demands. Anything else will fail." After hours of debate, the Council drafted a new invitation. It was not a demand. It was not a threat. It offered humans equal status, with no hidden obligations. It acknowledged that humans would be independent, disciplined, and capable of making their own decisions. The Council recognized that humanity's refusal to submit had shown a strength they had never seen before. Alex Carter received the communication on Earth. He read the Council's message carefully, then turned to Admiral Ryan Cole. "They are finally offering equal status," he said. "After all their threats and fleets, they finally understand that humans cannot be controlled. This is a recognition of our strength, patience, and discipline. It is exactly what we expected." Ryan Cole nodded. "They took their time, but they have learned. Humans survive because we act with clarity, courage, and principle. Now they are willing to meet us as equals." Professor Ethan Ross explained the Council's invitation to human leaders. "This is more than diplomacy," he said. "This is acknowledgement. The Council has seen that humans are disciplined, independent, and strong. They recognize that intimidation and force do not work on us. We will now engage as equals, not as subjects. This is a new chapter for humanity in the galaxy." Human envoys prepared to travel to the Council's main chamber once more. This time, Alex Carter was not representing a species that needed approval or guidance. He represented a species that had stood firm, proven its strength, and demanded respect. Humans were not seeking war or domination. They were seeking recognition as equals, a position they had earned through patience, discipline, and courage. As the human fleet approached the Council's city, alien captains watched nervously. Fleets that had once threatened humans now observed with caution. Humans had not acted aggressively. They had not provoked. They had only stood firm and prepared. The Council had learned that a species could be strong without showing rage, fierce without starting conflict, and dangerous without attacking. Alex Carter walked into the Council chamber once more. The same enormous hall, the same towering crystal pillars, but the mood was different. The aliens who had once sneered, argued, and doubted now watched with caution and respect. The Council chair, Taran, stepped forward. His 4 eyes regarded Alex carefully. "Human envoy Alex Carter," Taran said. "After much observation and consideration, the Council recognizes humanity as an independent species capable of making its own decisions. We offer membership as equals with no hidden demands. Your refusal to comply with our initial treaties has shown a strength we did not anticipate. We now acknowledge you on your own terms." Alex nodded respectfully. "Thank you," he said. "Humans did not refuse out of defiance. We refused because we act on principle. We value freedom, equality, and reason. We will work with other species only as equals and only when it benefits all. That is how humans survive, and that is how we choose to engage with the galaxy," the Council murmured. Some were still cautious, but most understood that humans had changed the rules. No other species had ever refused the Council and survived. No other species had stood firm and earned respect without aggression. Humans had achieved what no one believed possible, recognition through principle, patience, and discipline. Envoys from other species watched closely. Whispers spread across the chamber. "Humans are different," one said. "They are strong without aggression," another replied. "They survive through discipline and principle. We underestimated them." Outside the Council chambers, human fleets patrolled calmly. Trade continued normally. Scientists worked on research. Families lived daily lives. Humans had not changed. They had not sought power or war. They had only demonstrated their strength through consistency, patience, and courage. The galaxy had learned that humans were a force to be respected, not feared, because they acted with principle rather than impulse. Alex returned to human command after the Council meeting. He spoke to Admiral Cole and other leaders. "This is a turning point," he said. "The Council now understands that humans cannot be controlled. They recognize our strength, discipline, and independence. Our refusal was not rebellion, it was a demonstration of our principle. Now we move forward as equals, not subjects." Ryan Cole nodded. "This is just the beginning. Other species will watch and they will learn. Humans survive not through aggression, but through strategy, discipline, and courage. We have shown that strength can exist without fear, power without domination, and victory without war." Professor Ross addressed human students and scientists. "The Council's invitation is a recognition," he said. "Humans have stood firm, refused unjust control, and demonstrated a new kind of strength. This is a lesson for the galaxy. Strength is not an intimidation, threat, or force. It is in patience, preparation, and principle. Humans have proven this, and now we step into a new era as equals among the stars. Weeks later, humans began formal engagement with the Council. They negotiated not as subjects, but as equals. Their technology, fleets, and knowledge were respected. Their voice was heard clearly in council discussions. The story of their refusal spread across the galaxy, becoming a lesson for all species. A species that acts with discipline, patience, and principle cannot be controlled or underestimated. Alex Carter reflected on the journey. Humans had faced threats, fleets, and intimidation, yet they had never panicked. They had never compromised their principles. Through calm, clarity, and courage, they had earned respect across the galaxy. They had shown that true strength lay not in aggression, but in principle and preparation. On Earth, families continued their daily lives, unaware of the detailed politics of the galaxy. Trade ships continued to move, research stations expanded, and humans prepared quietly for the future. Humanity had proven itself, not through war, but through steadfast courage and disciplined action. They were recognized, respected, and equal among the stars. The Galactic Council, once confident in its ability to control others, had learned humility. Fleets were no longer sent to intimidate humans. Envoys approached with respect. Analysts studied human discipline and patience, realizing that strength could take many forms. Humans had changed the rules simply by standing firm, acting with principle, and refusing to submit to threats. Alex Carter stood on the observation deck of a human command station, looking at the stars. He thought of the Council's panic, their failed fleets, and their eventual recognition. Humans had faced the galaxy not with rage, but with reason, not with aggression, but with courage, not with submission, but with principle, and the galaxy had learned to respect them. Professor Ross concluded, humans are different. They survive because they understand themselves, act on principle, and engage the galaxy with patience and discipline. The Council has learned that no threat can control them, no intimidation can bend them, and no pressure can break them. Humanity moves forward as equals, not as subjects, because we stand firm in our principles. The stars outside the observation deck twinkled quietly, as if acknowledging the beginning of a new era. Humans had spoken, humans had refused. And the galaxy, for the first time, understood that strength could exist without fear, power without domination, and victory without war. Humanity had proven its place among the stars. The Council, once confident in its authority, now respected the humans. The galaxy had been warned. Humans act with principle, patience, and courage. And any who underestimated them would learn, as the Council had learned, that humans are not to be controlled but respected. The story of the humans' refusal and eventual recognition spread across the galaxy, inspiring other species to consider principles, patience, and discipline as true strength. Humans did not conquer through war or intimidation. They conquered by standing firm in their values, proving that courage and principle are mightier than fleets or threats. And in the end, humanity stepped forward as an equal among the stars, ready to face the future with calm, clarity, and unwavering strength. The Galactic Council had panicked, fleets had moved, and threats had failed, but humans had endured. Humans had survived. And humanity had earned its rightful place in the galaxy not through fear but through principle. The stars had witnessed it. The galaxy had learned it. And humans, patient and disciplined, moved forward into a new era, standing strong, proud, and equal among the stars.